Sick days. When Andrew started coughing, it was as if the house itself caught the illness. The air turned heavier, clocks seemed to slow down, and even the baby's cries began to sound hollow, like something invisible had started draining the life out of everything under our roof. It began in January. My husband came down with what looked like the worst case of the flu I'd seen in years. Fever, vomiting, chills, the works. I played nurse, housekeeper, mother, and emotional punching bag all in one. I wiped his forehead with damp cloths, made soup from scratch, changed soiled sheets at 2 in the morning. I did it out of love at first, I truly did. But love has a shelf life when it's not reciprocated. By mid-February, the worst of the symptoms were gone. No more fever, no more vomiting. The cough had all but disappeared. But Andrew stayed in bed, as if the sheets had grown roots around his body and wouldn't let him go. "I'm still weak," he'd mutter, barely lifting his head. "These things take time." He stopped seeing his doctor, stopped showering, stopped even pretending to try. Meanwhile, I was drowning. We have 3 kids, a 6-month-old who feeds every 2 hours, a 2-year-old daughter with cerebral palsy who needs near-constant supervision, and a 15-year-old who's smart enough to see when something's going very wrong. I was supposed to do it all. Again. While he laid in bed watching YouTube videos about long flu recovery and asking for toast at 3 a.m., like some delusional prince. I hadn't slept a full night in months. The walls were closing in, and we were running out of money, fast. I brought it up gently at first. "Maybe it's time to go back to work," I'd say, tucking a blanket around his legs. "I still feel off," he'd whisper, eyes never leaving the screen. Then came the anger. "Andrew, we can't afford this anymore. Either you go back to work or you see a doctor. I can't keep carrying this on my own." But he'd always find a way to deflect, to cry, guilt trip, or sulk his way out of accountability. The longer he stayed in bed, the more he became a ghost with a heartbeat. And then came the dinner. That night, my oldest daughter asked if she could get a new phone. Hers had been glitching for weeks, but I'd put it off. I looked her in the eyes and said gently, "Honey, we're in a tight spot right now. We can't afford extras." She nodded, mature, understanding. God, I was proud of her. But then Andrew, lounging in the corner, with a blanket over his lap like a Victorian invalid, chuckled and said, "Well, you could have a new phone, but the problem is, Daddy's sick and Mommy doesn't want to get a job. So until she decides to work, we can't afford food, or the house, or anything." I don't remember how I stood up. It felt like my body moved before my brain did. I could see the shock on my daughter's face, and on my own, reflected in the mirror behind the dining table. I snapped. "You want me to get a job? Fine. You take care of the baby. Change her at 4 a.m. when she screams bloody murder. Help our middle daughter with her seizures and meds. Drive Emma to school. Cook, clean, do laundry. Handle every bill and every meltdown and every scrape and fever. Can you even hold the baby without dropping her? Do you know what meds your daughter takes every day?" He didn't answer, just stared at me like I was a stranger. "And maybe," I added, my voice shaking, "if you stopped pretending to be sick and acted like a grown man for once, we wouldn't even have to talk about any of this in front of our kids." He stormed out, the lie beneath. I didn't tell him I found the letter, not at first. I slipped it out of the trash, folded it in half and tucked it into the back pocket of my jeans. My fingers were trembling. Not with shock, no, with clarity. That was the part that terrified me most. In that moment, I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was awake. I'd been sleepwalking through the last 3 months, convincing myself I was being too harsh, too impatient, too suspicious. But the letter said it all. Andrew wasn't healing. He was hiding. He'd been fired 5 weeks ago for gross misconduct and breach of protocol. No details, just a blunt, clinical paragraph and a termination date. And he hadn't said a word. I spent that entire morning watching him from behind door frames, listening to his coughs, the ones that now sounded exaggerated, cartoonish. He made his tea with the same trembling hand he used whenever I was in the room. But when he thought he was alone, he moved fine. No shakiness, no sighs. He was rehearsing. That night, when the kids were asleep, I walked into the bedroom and stood by the door. We need to talk. He didn't even look up from his phone. Now's not a great time. No, I said. Now is the only time. He finally set his phone down and looked at me with the same lazy, sick puppy expression I'd come to hate. I found the letter. Silence. His jaw twitched. His eyes darted to the side, not in surprise, but in calculation. I was going to tell you, he said slowly. I just didn't want to stress you out. Not with the baby and everything. That's when I realized he wasn't just hiding. He was manipulating. 5 weeks, Andrew. 5 weeks you let me think you were on medical leave. I asked you every day if you talked to your boss. You lied to my face over and over. He stood up now, defensive, like a cornered animal. I was sick. You saw how bad it was. I saw a man too scared to face reality, I snapped. A man so afraid of failing that he'd rather fake illness than tell his wife the truth. He ran a hand through his hair. I was ashamed, okay? I messed up at work, and they canned me. I thought if I told you, you'd leave me. That hit me like a slap. Leave you? I said. I've stayed through worse. Through your drinking phase, through the panic attacks, through that time you drained our savings on crypto. Don't bring that up. Why not? You think this is the first time I've had to hold everything together? The only difference now is that you're pretending to be weak when you're actually just cowardly. The fight didn't end there. It spiraled. Words turned into accusations. Accusations into tears. He said I was ungrateful, that I didn't understand the pressure men were under, that I made him feel like nothing. And just like that, I started to doubt myself again. Was I being cruel? Was he just broken? But then, the next day, my daughter Emma came to me with a question. Why did Dad say we can't afford food? She asked. I froze. He was just exaggerating. Sometimes adults say dumb things. She hesitated. He told me I should hide some snacks in my room, in case you start skipping meals to feed us. I sat down. What? He said he heard you crying in the kitchen at night, said you were trying to starve yourself to keep us fed. So I should keep crackers and stuff in case things get bad. I felt sick. Andrew hadn't just been lying to me. He'd been planting stories in our daughter's head. He was rewriting the narrative, turning me into the negligent mother, the selfish wife. That night, after the kids were asleep, I confronted him again. This time, I didn't raise my voice. I simply asked, "Why are you making Emma think I'm starving her?" He blinked. Then, the smile, small, tight, like something had cracked beneath the surface. She deserves to know what kind of mother she has. I stood still. You're not sick, I said. You're dangerous. And that, dear God, that is when he laughed. Not a loud laugh, not hysterical, just a chuckle, like something amused him, like he was proud of how well he'd played the game. The parasite. After that laugh, something shifted in the house. He stopped pretending to be sick. Not openly. He still coughed when the kids were around, still groaned as he dragged himself up from the couch like a wounded soldier. But with me, the mask dropped. He started calling it his home in front of me. My house, my rules, he said one night after I told him to stop snapping at the baby. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A bitter, exhausted laugh. You mean the house I clean, the kids I raise, the food I make, and the debt I now carry? He just stared at me like I was a fly on his sandwich, like I was the thing that had made his life taste bad. And here's the thing about being a stay-at-home mom. You get used to sacrificing things. Your body, your sleep, your career, your voice. You think you're doing it for love, for the kids, for the greater good, and maybe you are. But people like Andrew, they treat that sacrifice like weakness. He started calling me names under his breath. At first, it was little things. Nag, dead weight. Then one day as I passed him in the hallway, I heard him whisper, "You're nothing without me." But he wasn't whispering to me. He was whispering to our baby. Just 5 soft words like a poison dropped in milk. That's when I started writing things down. Every conversation, every insult, every strange behavior. I created a folder on my phone hidden inside a dummy notes app. I recorded his outbursts. I took photos when he left the stove on, when he forgot to give our toddler her medication. I didn't know what I was going to do with it all, but I knew I had to keep it. Then came the Tuesday he locked himself in our bedroom for 8 hours. He didn't come out, not even for water. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Finally, he opened the door, wild-eyed, disheveled, smiling. "I'm going to be a coach," he said. "A what?" "A life coach. I already bought the domain." He'd spent $800 on a website package and an ad campaign from our joint account. "This is it," he said. "This is how I bounce back." It would have been funny if it wasn't tragic. A man who couldn't get out of bed was now offering strangers advice on how to fix their lives. And somehow, in that twisted brain of his, he believed it. I told him it was a scam, that he'd wasted our money, that we didn't have money to waste. He stared at me, that blank stare again, like I was static on a screen. Then he muttered, "You're jealous." That night, I went to sleep on the floor of the nursery with the baby. I locked the door. I stopped speaking to him unless it involved the kids. I kept to one-word answers. I moved our money to a separate account. I called a lawyer. I didn't want a divorce yet. I just wanted options. The next day, my teenage daughter Emma came home with a bruise on her wrist. "What happened?" I asked. She shrugged. "Dad grabbed me too hard when I asked if we could order pizza." My blood turned to ice. I walked into the living room, where he was sitting in his boxers watching YouTube videos on charisma. "You touched Emma?" I asked. He looked up, annoyed. "She was being mouthy." "You touched her? She'll be fine. Stop overreacting. This is why no one respects you." And just like that, the fear turned into resolve. I wasn't going to let this man destroy my children. Or me. A house for the brave. 2 days after the incident with Emma, I reported him. No, he didn't get arrested. Not right away. It wasn't that easy. But calling Child Protective Services lit a fuse that couldn't be put out. A caseworker came to the house. She talked to the kids, she talked to me, and then she talked to him. During the interview, he used his boss voice, the one he used on conference calls back when he still had a job. Calm, confident, reasonable, polished like a lie told 1,000 times. He smiled too much, called her ma'am, played the doting dad, but she wasn't fooled. She asked follow-up questions, she took notes, and she didn't smile back. Later that week, I met with a lawyer, not to talk but to sign. I filed for a protective order. Then I filed for separation. The lawyer was kind, efficient, and fast. We served him the papers 2 days later, just after dinner, when the kids were watching TV. He was stunned, not angry at first. Stunned, like I'd reached into his chest and turned off the engine. "You're doing this to me?" he said. "After everything?" "After everything," I said. Then came the rage, the shouting, the wild accusations. The caseworker had warned me this might happen. I already had my neighbor waiting outside with her phone. I called the police. He left that night, took nothing but a gym bag and his fake flu cough. The house was silent afterward, not peaceful, just quiet, like it was holding its breath. I sat with my kids and explained what was happening. Emma nodded, relieved. The younger ones didn't understand it all, but they knew something had changed. Something heavy had been lifted. We slept in the same room that night, all of us. One big blanket nest on the floor. The baby curled up on my chest, Emma on my left, and my middle child snoring softly on my right. For the first time in months, I felt like a mother again. Not a servant, not a target, just a mother. It took months to finalize things. The court ruled in our favor. He wasn't granted shared custody, only supervised visits, which he stopped showing up for. His life coach business folded. The money was gone. So was the image he'd built for himself. He eventually moved in with his sister, who called me once and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was that bad." I didn't answer. There's no perfect ending to stories like this. Just survival, just steady ground. But here's what I know. The house feels like ours now. We laugh again. We eat pancakes for dinner when we feel like it. We dance in the kitchen. I started working part-time from home, writing content for a website that sells eco-friendly baby products. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. And last week, when I told Emma I was thinking about repainting the bedroom, she said, "Do it. This place is yours now." She didn't mean the house. She meant my life.